Like a craftsman with their tools, we all have something to offer. We have been designed with a purpose and have opportunities to influence, encourage, and inspire those around us. And simply put, it comes down to identifying the answer to one question: what is in your hand? We believe the answer to this question lies in how God designed us and what He designed us for. If you have a desire to love and lead those around you, you won't want to miss the Move Out Gathering. We have Dave Nelson, lead pastor of K2 the Church in Salt Lake City.
What God is trying to help all of us understand, it's not about the job that we're doing, it's about the essence of who He's created us to be.
We have the privilege of hearing from Brian Peterson, a designer from Kia who started a nonprofit for the homeless of Southern California.
Usually, as we paint people, they go from like fans to friends, and then some become like family.
And Danielle Strickland, author, speaker, and co-founder of 4 organizations.
Love is a means by which you can unlock the kind of servanthood that has no agenda, which is so powerful.
There will also be several workshops to choose from. You are an influencer. You have relationships. You have an opportunity to discover not only how you were crafted, but what you were crafted for.
Good morning, Kensington. As you heard in the video, we have our Move Out Gathering coming up this weekend, and you may be asking, what is Move Out? You got a little information there, but really we have 3 things that we talk about here. We talk about showing up, jumping in, and moving out is really an opportunity for us to find out information of how we can go out and impact the community. And so they talk a lot about the leaders being invited to be empowered, and I think a lot of people hear leader and they discount themselves or they check out, but I just want to encourage you, all of us have a sphere of influence. There are people around us that we're impacting even if we don't realize it. And so I would encourage you to come out to this event. This is an opportunity for us to learn about how God has uniquely crafted us to go out and impact those around us. So I would love for you to come and be a part of that. Well, my name is Aaron Jones. I'm the worship arts director here at Clinton Township. And if this is your first time coming to Kensington, we just want to say thank you for coming. And we love that you're here with us today. And we actually have a special gift for you out in the lobby. There's an area directly in the middle called the Hub. There's people out there with orange t-shirts and name tags just waiting to meet you and give you this special gift and say thank you for joining us today. Now, some of the other things that you can find out in the lobby in the Hub are different events that are coming up. And you probably, as you were coming in, saw the tables out in the lobby as well. And that is for our Connect event. And we do this twice a year to share the different groups and events that we have coming up. And so you're probably thinking, why should I go to that Connect event? Why should I go and look and see what they have to offer? Well, it's an opportunity for you to jump in and be more in a small group or different groups that actually make this large place feel a little bit more like home. And so we see a lot of the life change stories that we hear happening within these small groups. And you may be thinking, well, what kind of group can I join? Well, if you're new to the faith or you just have questions, we have Alpha. We also, if you're just looking for a group of friends, we also have small groups where people hold groups within their homes. And we also have large groups for men and women that happen here in this very building. And so there's really something for everyone. So I would encourage you to stop by that table and find out the different things that are happening. Now, not only do we have things for our adults, but we also have things for our kids. And so we have a program here called Kaleo Kids, and it's a dynamic program that really teaches biblical stories as well as pouring into your kids with the gift of the arts. So if you have a kid or you know someone's kid who may be interested or gifted in dance, singing, or acting, this is an opportunity for you to sign up for that. And we would love for you to join us this semester as we learn about how God has called us to dream and really pursue the things that are in our future. Now, before we move on in our service, I would love to have you stand up and say hello to the people around you.
fleeting colors on the page of black and white. You try your hardest, but you can't stay in the lines. Every failure seems deeper than the last, but your tomorrow doesn't have to be your past. 'Cause every day's a blank canvas for you, from the God who makes all things new. Lay your worries down and rest in the truth that you're not out of chances. Every day's a blank canvas for you. You don't feel picture perfect, and sometimes it hurts so much. But forever faithful is the hand that holds a brush. Your life is painted with a love that won't let go, and the artist loves you more than you can know. 'Cause every day's a blank canvas for you, from the God who makes all things new. Lay your worries down and rest in the truth that you're not out of chances. Every day's a blank canvas for you. The sun will rise, a new mercy, new life. Lift up your eyes to a beautiful sight. 'Cause every day's a blank canvas for you, from the God who makes all things new. Lay your worries down and rest in the truth that you're not out of chances. Every day's a blank canvas for you. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
A blank canvas. I think that's something that we all want in life. This idea that we could have a clean slate, a fresh start, kind of a do-over. And sometimes it's for maybe a season of life, right? We're like, man, I just need a fresh start, here we go. Or this idea that tomorrow, it's a new day, and there's no mistakes in it just yet, right? Or sometimes we just need to almost rewind within our day, within the hour, and go, I just need to just start this over again. So that we have this opportunity that we can paint a new picture, that we can write a new story with our life. And the good news is that we actually do have those opportunities, just like the song talked about. That God has a blank canvas for you and for me, that we're not out of chances, that we really can have that. Will you pray with me this morning? God, I just thank you so much for just this time to be together. And I just pray that we would hear from you today, God. We'd hear and know deeply within our hearts how much you love us, how much you care for us, and how there is always something new with you, that you give us new life, that it doesn't matter our past, that you have things for us ahead of us, and they are new and they are beautiful, and that you are always giving us a blank canvas. In your name, amen. Well, good morning, Kensington. It's so great to be with you guys. My name is Shauna, and I'm the production manager here at Clinton Township. And I'm just really excited to share with you guys today as we dive into week 3 of our series, Sermons from the Seats. And so over the last couple weeks, we've been able to share some really inspiring stories with you from people within our own community here. In the first week, we talked about how from the ashes of our life, from the brokenness, that God can bring about beauty. And he can bring hope and joy. Last week we talked about how life is just a mist, that it's a vapor. And we were challenged with the thought of like, what are you really living for? And I'm excited that today we have another incredible, powerful story to share with you from someone here within our own community. Now, that song that the band just played, Blank Canvas, made me think of a time that I went to one of those group painting activities, those painting with a twist, paint and pour. Has anyone done one of those? Yeah? Okay. It's a lot of girls. All the females are like, yeah. It is for everyone. It really is a great like date night kind of activity, group outing. But basically, if you don't know what they are, it's not so much of a class, but more of like an activity you'd go to. And an instructor basically guides you step by step how to paint a picture that otherwise you probably would never paint. And if you have no artistic ability, you would definitely, right? So it's kind of like paint by numbers for adults with an instructor, okay? So I did this a couple years ago with a bunch of girlfriends. So I brought a picture of it. We can see what we did and how our painting turned out. So we did Marilyn Monroe. I'm not really like a huge fan. Like, I really don't even know where that picture is now, to be honest with you. But for the most part, you can see that all of our pictures turned out really similar. Like some people added their own, unique flavor to it by creating different looks of the lip color and stuff. But overall, they all turned out pretty same on the canvas. And it was really fun. But that kind of got me thinking about, like, is that always the case? And it's not. So I have a couple pictures I want to share with you. So here's the first one. I guess we could just say they tried. I don't know. Like, you can tell there's a tree and a mountain, but past that, it just really did not go probably as planned. I love this next one here for us. So, got to give him credit, right? Like, he painted a flower. They're painting a flower, but then he's just like, no. I feel like that would be my husband if I said, let's go do this. That would be his painting right there. Okay, and then I have one more for us. Oh gosh, this is so cute. So obviously these kids are painting Olaf, the snowman from Frozen. That kid in the back, like with the orange yellow shirt, it kind of reminds me more of like Woody from Toy Story. So I don't know. But that little boy in the front, you guys, I want to be like, it's a snowstorm. But it's literally just a mess of paint. Like that is all it is, right? And as cute as that is, I kind of think that's a good representation of life sometimes. I have this canvas here, and it is just a mess of paint. It doesn't look like anything. Sometimes our life does not look like what we thought it would. It didn't turn out like Olaf. It was supposed to be, but it sure didn't turn out like that. Sometimes it's because of the mistakes, the choices that we have made. It really marks up our canvas. Sometimes it's because of just life circumstances, the cards you were dealt with. Your canvas is messy, and it's ugly, and you can be ashamed of it, and it can be painful, and there's brokenness in this canvas. And we're going to meet a character today who I think had some marks on his canvas. I think due to some of the choices that he made and some errors that he made in his life, his canvas was definitely marked up. He actually made some mistakes, and he ended up running away from the situation. So he did wrong and said, heck, I'm out of here. And his name is Onesimus. And we're finding his story today in the book of Philemon. So if you have your Bible today, you can pull that out. It's the name of the book. Now, it's a really tiny book, okay? So if you have your Bible in the New Testament, you have to get really slow when you get to the last half because it's just between Titus and Hebrews. And it's actually a letter that Paul wrote. And it's very small, but there's some really big truths that we can find in there. Now, Paul, he's a guy that went around and he told people about Jesus. So he would share the good news, the message of God's love with people. And in his travels, he meets this guy named Philemon. Now, Philemon is a Roman citizen, and Philemon becomes a believer in Jesus because of Paul. And he even begins a church in his home. Now, Philemon, like many Romans at the time, as was customary, he had a slave. And his slave is Onesimus. Now, something happens between Philemon and Onesimus. We don't know exactly what. Some people believe that maybe Onesimus robbed him. There was some sort of theft. But basically, Onesimus wrongs him. So his canvas gets marked up. He's done something wrong, and he runs away. And after he runs away, he encounters Paul. But Paul at this time is not sharing the good news out traveling around. He's actually in jail, and he's in jail because of his faith. And so we pick up this story here in the book of Philemon of Paul writing to Philemon. So we're going to pick it up in verse 4. And he says, I always thank my God as I remember you in my prayers, because I hear about your love for all of his holy people and your faith in the Lord Jesus. I pray that your partnership with us in the faith may be effective in deepening your understanding of every good thing we share for the sake of Christ. So Paul starts his letter, and it's all kind of nice and happy. And we come across this word in verse 6. And it's a key word here. And the word is partnership. He says, I pray for your partnership with us in the faith may be effective. Partnership. Now, if we look at the Greek word here, the word is koinonia. And koinonia means sharing, that we have a mutual participation. So that in our faith, we are sharing this. It's not just me and you listen or you watch, but that it is both. It is all. It's inclusive. It's for all of us. We share in this. And this is how Paul really lived. This is what he believed. He believed in koinonia. And we see this in some of his other writings. In Ephesians chapter 2, he talks about this. He says, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or if you're a Gentile. If you believe in Jesus, then you're a member of God's family. It was very important that we see each other as inclusive and as equals. And this just wasn't some idea that he hoped would be. This is actually how Paul lived his life. That he said, if you are a follower of Jesus, then you and I, we are equals, and we share in the gifts that God gives us. So his gifts of grace, his gift of love, we share in this. So Paul begins this letter right away, and he reminds Philemon of this. He's like, remember that anyone who believes in Jesus, we share. This is for all of us. We're on an equal playing field. And it doesn't matter what they have done or what their life was like. If they're a believer, it's for all of us. And I think this is a really good reminder that it doesn't matter your past. It doesn't matter how often you have come to church. It doesn't matter how much you pray or read your Bible or how much you even serve. And it doesn't matter if you look like me or act like me. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, if you're male or female. It doesn't matter your social economic class. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter what political party you vote for. That if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, we are all equal together. That it is for all of us. Now you could be like, yeah, Shauna, I know that. Move on. But the thing is, I don't know. I think we know it up here, but sometimes I think we miss it here. Because sometimes I think we like the comfort of everything being the same and what we think is safe. And so when someone comes along that might have a different thought or a different opinion, but yet they're a believer in Jesus, it kind of rattles that comfort zone, right? And we're like, oh, I don't think you can be a believer in Jesus if you think that. Oh, you vote differently than me? Whew. But following Jesus is not about being comfortable. It's about him. So we have to ask ourselves, what is he about? He's about reaching the one. He's about saying, I am love, and I can bring that to the hopeless, to the hurting. For those of you that feel broken, I have peace, I have joy, there is hope, there is forgiveness. That is what he is all about. And that we can all share in that together. So Paul begins his letter by kind of laying this foundation right there, saying, Philemon, this is for all of us. And then he continues on in verses 9 and 10, and he says, yet I prefer to appeal to you on the basis of love. It is as none other than Paul, an old man, and now also a prisoner of Christ Jesus, that I appeal to you for my son, Onesimus, who became my son while I was in chains. So Paul's writing, and then he kind of drops this little bit of knowledge in there. He's like, hey, how's it going, Philemon? We are partners in Jesus. And oh yeah, I know Onesimus, and like he's like my son. Now we read that and we're like, okay, cool, it's a Bible story, all right. But we forget that these are actual people. These are people, humans that live their life, that have emotions, that had thoughts. Onesimus is Philemon's slave who wronged him and then ran away. So I was thinking about, like, for you and I, let's bring it to the context of maybe what our life is today. It would be like someone who's very important to you, very influential. For those of us here today that are believers, it would maybe be that person that was helped lead you to Jesus, that has been that person in your life. Maybe they've been a mentor. They've walked with you as you are on this journey of faith, and they send you a text. So you're like, oh my gosh, yes, so good to hear from you. You're reading it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, I know so-and-so. And so-and-so is like a former friend, a former coworker. It's somebody who wronged you, someone who stabbed you in the back. And I can imagine reading it going, okay, so you met them. What did you say back to them? Did you defend me? I can imagine the emotions I would start to feeling. But instead of getting some sort of like, oh yeah, and I made sure they knew that what they did to you was wrong, instead, this person who means the world to you says, they're like my family now. I probably I don't know about you, when I get angry, it's like I can get hot all the way up, and I'm like, and then the mind starts going, right? I probably would drop the phone or throw it, right? Let's be honest. But the thing is, Paul doesn't write this so that he can rile Philemon up and be like, oh, guess what? Nor is he giving him some sort of status update like, hey, been in jail now for this long. I've met 3 more people this month, right? He actually has a purpose here. And we see this, just how he begins his letter by bringing in this whole idea of partnership, that we have koinonia. Remember, Philemon, we're all equal in this. This is for all of us. And then he continues on. He says, I prefer to appeal to you on the basis of love. He's not doing this to throw this in his face, but there's a greater purpose here. He continues on and he talks about how Onesimus has become like his very heart. Now, any parent in the room, you understand that. Your kids are your heart, right? Like, I have 2 boys. They are the extension of my heart, like outside of me, right? They are my everything. And Paul's saying, this is how I see Onesimus. He is my very heart. And guess what, Philemon? I'm going to send him back to you. But here's the deal. He's not coming back as a slave. He's coming back as a brother in Christ. Paul begins to implore koinonia right there. He's like, yes, I know, like, he was your slave, technically, legally, all that. Yes, he is still your slave. But do not see him as that anymore. Yes, he had a lot of markings on his canvas, but guess what? He has a blank canvas now. God has changed his life. He's a believer in Jesus. So you need to see him as that. He is your equal. We are to accept and see everyone who comes into God's family as our equal, as our partner. We're to see them how Jesus sees them, in the image of God. And then Paul continues on, and he says, so if you consider me a partner, once again, he brings up that whole idea that we are partners. He says, welcome him as you would welcome me. So Paul steps in and he's like, yeah, I'm sending him back to you, but here's the deal. You need to welcome it as if it were me. So open your arms, Philemon, and you better be like this when he comes back. He's not the slave who wronged you. It's like if it was me. And Philemon is only a believer in Jesus because of Paul. So that's a huge statement. He steps in and he defends him. He's an advocate. He says, it's okay. He's a believer and you better accept him. He fights for him. Have you ever had anyone fight for you? I can remember back in my college years being home for the summer and, working jobs and all that, and I had a stellar 2-day career as a waitress. Yep, it's real good. But the place I worked for was awful. It really was. And they treated the employees like it was horrific. And I remember coming home after that first day, like sick to my stomach. And the thought of actually having to go back, I just was petrified. And so the next day before I left, I finally shared with my mom, and with a tear streaming down my face, we just were like, okay, well, we'll get through this day and then we'll figure it out, right? So I'm at work, and mid-shift, my dad shows up. My dad was supposed to be at work. But he showed up with fire in his eyes to defend me, to fight for me. He stepped into my situation and made it his own. And I think as believers, that's what we get to do for other people. We can fight for others when we take ownership for people's situations, when we have compassion and see others as important as ourselves. Now, tomorrow we're going to celebrate someone who's an incredible example of this. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who fought tirelessly for racial equality and justice. He was an advocate of love and peace. He saw others as important, more important than himself. He stepped into their situations and he took ownership as if it was his own. I love what he says. When you come to the point that you look in the face of every man and see deep down within him what religion calls the image of God, you begin to love him in spite of. No matter what he does, you see God's image there. There is an element of goodness that he can never slough off. Without love, there is no reason to know anyone, for love will, in the end, connect us to our neighbors, our children, and our hearts. He was always trying to shift our gaze and give us a new perspective. That we can be an advocate in love. That we can be that. And this is exactly what Paul does here. He steps in and he defends for him to be accepted, to be seen for who he is now, for how God sees him. That he is now made in the image of God and that he is an equal. But Paul, this is the best part. He doesn't leave it there. He goes on in verses 18 and 19 and he says, if he has done you any wrong or owes you anything, charge it to me. I, Paul, am writing this with my own hand. I will pay it back, not to mention that you owe me your very self. So not only does he send Onesimus back and step up and defend him to say he is accepted now because he's our brother, but he says, whatever wrong he has done, I will pay it. I will pay the price, and it doesn't matter what it is. And that's what we're to do. But being an advocate will cost you something. Stepping out and standing up for somebody or something is risky. There is a cost to it. But you guys, this is what the gospel message is all about. Now, if you're here today and you're kind of just checking this whole Jesus thing out, I want you to know this is God. He is the ultimate advocate. He steps into our canvas that is so messy. Sometimes it's because of the choices we have made. There is failure, there is fear. Sometimes it's just life. Injustice has maybe been done to you. And God steps in. He fights for you. He says that this does not matter. I have a blank canvas for you. It does not matter what your past looks like, what has been. This is for you, and it doesn't matter what we do to try and earn it because we cannot earn it. He gives it to us because he loves us. And his love paid the ultimate price for us. And so not only do we see this in Paul here, that he is literally acting as Christ, but it's an appeal to me and to you that this is the very essence of being a Christian, that we would advocate for people and we would empower them, that we would go to the broken, to the lonely, to the hurting, to those in pain, those who are marginalized, and say, there is a God who loves you, that he has hope, that there is joy, there is forgiveness, there is peace, and there is justice, and you are equal and you are seen in the eyes of God. We see this in Proverbs 31. He says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. We are called to notice, but we are called to go. Go to someone that is hurting, that is broken, that canvas is a mess, that they can't see anything. It's not what life they wanted it to be like, that they are hurting. We are called to go to them, to go be loved to them, because when we do that, we are actually loving God. So if you consider yourself a believer in Jesus, loving someone else is a way to love God. I love what Bob Goff says. He's an author and speaker. And he says, love is never stationary. In the end, love doesn't just keep thinking about it or planning for it. Simply put, love does. Love does. It's an action, but how many times have I found myself just thinking about it? I get these, I'm like, yes, I need to do this. I need to text so-and-so because I know they're going through a really hard time. I should take them out for coffee. But then life. Love does. It goes. We need to go be love. Because that is who Jesus is. He is love. It is not stationary. He is not stationary. It is an action. We are called to step into someone else's mess, into their canvas, to say, you have hope. There is a God of justice who sees you and loves you. We are called to step into that. And today we're going to share a story of two different people from two very different worlds who have learned how to be an advocate for each other, really. It's a story of love and deep friendship that binds these two people, Scott and David. And throughout their 30-plus year journey, they have faced challenges. But through Christ, it's a story of love and advocacy. And I do want to let parents know in the room that there is, within the first 30 seconds of, there's a few lines that we would put a PG rating on. The whole video is not, but we just want you to be aware of that and you to use your discretion as we share this story. And as we prepare to watch Scott and David's story, we're going to take a moment and receive the offering at this time. And for those of you that are just visiting today, this moment is not designed for you. This is for those of us that call Kensington home. So you can let the pouch just pass on by. And for those of us that this place is home, there's multiple ways you can give. You can give in the pouch. You can go online. You can go to the app. You can text Kensington to 77977. And we thank you so much for your faithful giving and just being on mission with us here. Now let's watch the story of Scott and David.
Life took a dramatic turn. I was raped at 13. Started drinking, never had a drink in my life, never smoked anything until that point. By this time, I'm on the street, I'm walking back and forth, up and down alleys, trying to figure stuff out. And at that point, spiraled out of control. When I was 17, just a lot of heavy drinking and a lot of debating here and there. And then the next thing you know, I shot this guy and I went to prison. First day I walked into prison, they had this big steel door. And when they opened the door, all you can hear is this loud noise from a bunch of people. You don't even know where it's coming from. Now you in with the prisoners and everybody hollering and screaming, hey, you fine guy, hey, you this, hey, you that, I'll see you in a minute. Don't worry about it, I got some food for you, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that for you. I ain't paying any attention, I'm just got my head kind of down because this is new to me. What must I do to survive this? If this is any indication, what must I do? Prison is opportunity and prey. Staff as well as prisoners. Because you had staff loan money to prisoners and I don't like David, so get him off the yard. And that's how that stuff basically went. They try you. And if they can get away with it, then you become the prey for the rest of your time you're in prison.
I was an inspector. And as the inspector at the facility, I conducted investigations for prisoners who would be working in close proximity to the secure, unsecure gate area. I interviewed David then as an inspector, and it was just something about him, the way he carried himself, his behavior, his honesty about what he was incarcerated for. It's rare that you find a prisoner that says, yes, I did do this. This was the circumstance. This is why it happened. So that was kind of refreshing. I hired him. He worked for me for a number of years as the inspector. And then as I progressed through the department, I kept David working in the same suite area. As the deputy warden, I had a suite of 8 to 10 offices and the control center to the facility. And David was he was a little bit of everything for me. He was a clerk, he was a porter, he was a painter, he was a mechanic, he did it all. And so I kept David in that position and at the facility for 25, 26 years.
Why are you working up there with Scott? Why are you doing this thing? Why are you, I see you walking down the sidewalk with Scott. Yeah, I do. What's up? You know how that look? I said, yeah, I know how I look. That's my friend. I'm a friend of his and he's a friend of mine. I don't bother your business, and I appreciate it if you just don't bother mine.
It started slow, like everything does.
It does.
In prison, because there's a distrust from Dave's perspective and from mine, and that takes a long time to just grow, especially for me. Probably it took a long time.
It did.
Because I was the disciplinarian who I didn't trust anybody, and probably still don't trust many. But you have to you can't just let somebody in. And Dave's is probably even harder for Dave, because Dave can't run the risk of letting someone get close to him, because he's been disappointed for 42 years. There was always that disappointment. Somebody will let you down. Somebody is gonna be there for you, and then the minute you need them to be there, that person won't be there. And that happens a lot in the prison system. And he got a lot of pushback. From prisoners, from staff people. Why you? Why is he helping you? You know, it was difficult for him.
It was, and I just made up in my mind that I'm not gonna even deal with people, places, and things, because no matter what I did or said, I wasn't gonna convince them that me and Scott is friends. That, you know, we just like we human, and this relationship is what it is. It's real. The first time I really wanted to get everything out of me, because I've been carrying it for years and years. And I walked into Scott's office one day. Hey, Scott. He said, hey. I said, here, read this. And I'll see you later. And I walked away. He read it. And when I seen him again, I think the next day, I looked at him and he looked at me, and I felt that feeling of somebody caring about me or loving me. That was him.
It's so hard for prisoners to trust anybody. Prisoners can't, for the most part, trust other prisoners because it's a dog-eat-dog kind of a world. And to trust a staff person with something that's so deep inside you and so important part of your life, that was extremely significant that he was willing to do that, because that was Dave telling the story about what happened to him once he initially got incarcerated. Dave was a young kid, a small young kid, thrown into an adult environment.
132 pounds.
With very, very evil people at times. Dave was victimized, but he couldn't tell anybody that. Dave didn't get visits. He didn't get visits by his own choice, but he did 42 years with less than 4 or 5 visits, right?
Yeah, about 7, 8 probably.
And some of those were clergy visits.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that contact outside of someone he could talk to. And so that became me talking to Dave and Dave talking to me. He knew, and it was at the forefront of his mind, that he was not getting out of prison.
Ever.
He was doing natural life. He knew that his only shot would be something so far-fetched that it probably would never happen, or a commutation from the governor.
Yeah. When he retired, when I found out that he was retiring, that was the worst. That was the worst, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to talk to him and socialize and get that morning coffee in and all of that little stuff that we had built together. And
it was extremely difficult for me to tell Dave, hey, look, after all this time, I'm going to be gone and I'm not coming back. But look, I'm going to do whatever I can do to help you. I think I was retired 4 or 5 years before the Supreme Court decision came out. Supreme Court came out with a decision that said anyone who was sentenced to natural life as a juvenile had to be reconsidered.
Yeah.
Their sentence is reconsidered by the court.
Yeah.
Because it's so true that people are just not the same people that they were when they were 16 and then when they were 50. And so the law said that you had to be reconsidered. I knew I had to do something. And so I contacted Dave's attorney, told him who I was and what I wanted to do. And I don't even think David knew it then.
No, I didn't.
You didn't know it until you talked to your attorney after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And she put me in contact with the 2 attorneys who were handling his case. And I think they were just flabbergasted that I had called. And I think at that point, you kind of got the idea that I was helping from the outside.
Yeah, that's when I knew.
Dave had to go back to court. So that was the first time we had seen each other in 5 years.
Yeah.
When he went back to court, and I think he was just shocked that I was there.
I was.
To testify for him in his rehearing.
My case itself didn't matter. I just wanted to see my friend.
Dave was sentenced to a minimum of 40 years. And he'd already done 42 years.
Yeah.
So we both knew that he was immediately eligible for parole. So it was at that point that I had to talk to my wife. I had talked to my wife about Dave before, but now I'm talking to my wife and saying, hey, look, he's got me, and he's got you now. And I want to be able to go to the parole board and say, hey, look, if you let him go, Dave can live with us. I'll do what I have to do to ensure that he gets to every parole hearing, give him a chance. And that's what we did at the parole board.
That's what we did.
April 18th.
April 18th.
That was the day that he was getting out. So I waited for him in the lobby, and he came out, and I don't think he knew what to do.
I didn't.
He was excited about his first traffic jam. I remember our first traffic jam coming back from a parole board hearing. Freedom is just, it's a difficult word to comprehend because you've lost so much. Yeah. And you're trying to pick up on a world that's moving 100 miles an hour.
You don't never think about getting out, like getting out. You hope you get out. And when it happens, it's almost like you was in a dream and you woke up, and when you woke up, you was outside the fences, not knowing which way to go. But I didn't have that. I had Scott, so I knew which way to go. I just need you to know, at the end of the day, contrary to whatever said and done, I love you.
I love you too, brother. He knows. David knows that and he really knows because he knows me.
Yeah.
And he knows the other side of me for all those years.
Yeah.
David's a part of our family. He's my brother. I love David, would do anything for him. And he knows at the end of the day that no matter what happens, he's always got us. This isn't a one-way street. I have learned so much from David. And he means so much to me and to my family. God is there. He's always been there. And I think it just took a long time of God putting in my heart and on my head that you can't judge a person based on their one worst mistake that they ever made in their life as a kid. And there's good in everyone. And he's a perfect example.
It's a powerful story. And being able to quickly share with Scott this morning, just hearing how their story continues and how God is weaving through this deep friendship even to this day. And it's a story we don't share just so you can go help someone who's less fortunate. That is not the heart. But we hope that you will engage in deep and real and meaningful relationships with those that are around you. That if you are here today and you have experienced God's changing power, His love, His hope in your life, if that is you, it's now time for you to go step into someone else's life, to go give that to them, to say that you're not too far gone, to say that there is a hope, there's love, there's justice for them, there is a God who sees them. You get to go shout someone's worth and their value. You have that opportunity. And yes, it will look different than Scott's story. It'll look different than me. But you need to ask yourself, are you willing? Are you willing to lay down your status, your privilege, your reputation, maybe your life, for the opportunity to see others as Jesus sees them, as He sees you and as how He sees me? And that's as a child of God, as someone who's so deeply loved, and as an equal. And you might be asking, but yeah, I do, but I don't know how, and that's okay. First step then is just to ask Him. Just ask Him. Say, God, I don't know how, but will you show me? Will you show me whose life I need to step into and be an advocate of your love, to speak up for them, to defend them, to show them that they matter? Will you show me who, God? Because when we do that, when we are an advocate and we love someone, our hearts become one. And we have koinonia. So go be love. But I also know that in a room this size, there are some people here today, honestly, you're not in a place to go be an advocate to someone else because you need someone to step into your life. Your canvas feels like it's a mess. There's fear and failure, brokenness, shame. There's pain. I want you to know that God is here today. and he wants to step into your life. He wants to give you a blank canvas. He wants to be your advocate today. He wants to give you something new. I love what it says in Isaiah 43. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Your life is not a wasteland. You are cherished. You are so immensely loved by God, and it doesn't matter what you have done, what has been done to you, or whatever will be. You are loved.
have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
loved. God so deeply loves you. And nothing will ever change that. And he will fight to make sure that you know that and you experience that. Now, our prayer team is going to be available down front for those of you if you'd like to pray with someone or talk with someone. And we hope that you'll come back next week as we conclude our series, Sermons from the Seats. But now, go be love.